Thank you very much for being here today. I am very pleased to be standing here today with other members of the Senate who care about public safety. I'm Senator Pat Gallivan. I chair the Crime and Corrections Committee. The Vice Chair of the Crime and Corrections Committee is Senator Helming. Senator Akshar is the former Broome County Undersheriff. Senator Golden, former New York City police officer. A couple months ago, the governor commuted the sentence of Judith Clark. As many remember, Judith Clark was involved in the Brink's robbery back in the early 80s. Ultimately, she was convicted of being involved in three murders, actually, 2 police officers and a security officer, and was received a sentence of 75 years to life. Very appropriate, we all believe. The governor commuted her sentence so that she was immediately eligible for parole, and clearly we disagreed with that, but nonetheless the governor has the right under the Constitution to do that, and she ultimately would be eligible to go before the parole board. Her parole hearing is in the first week of April, I believe, and we want to do everything we can to prevent the parole board from releasing her. So we enlisted other members of the legislature, District Attorneys Association, members of the law enforcement community in an effort to gather signatures from across the state on a petition that we will present to the parole board asking them to deny the release of Judith Clark. So we are going to do that today. The results of that petition drive are right here for you to see. We're just short of 10,000 signatures, and when we're done today, we'll be going over to the parole board on Central Avenue and presenting these signatures that are the result of the efforts of police agencies, police unions, district attorneys, other members of the Senate, people who care about this, the family members of the deceased from across the state. I'd like to thank everybody who stood up for what I believe is the right thing to do. This is a person that does not belong on the streets, in my opinion, and I think the evidence of that, well, the evidence that other people in the community in the state don't think so is right here in these boxes. So with that, I would ask the other members if they'd like to say a few words, and then we'll take questions. Anybody?
Our leadership and all of our colleagues stand here today with us, even though there's only 4 of us here today. This is wrong, simply wrong. I was a police officer, and we were hunting down those that were killing cops in our city and in our state, whether it was this incident or the Black Liberation Army or Joanne Chesimard, who is presently living in Cuba, another cop assassinator. This cannot be the message that we send to the rest of this great nation, that if you kill a police officer and that you take that soul from that family, whether it is the sergeant, Sergeant O'Grady, Officer Page, Officer Brown, those families, those children have no father, they have no grandfather, no husband. It's wrong. And we only seen recently, yesterday, another 2 attempts of assassination of police officers in this great country. It's the wrong message to send. The right message is you kill a police officer, you kill a cop, you kill any law enforcement agent that's working for this great city, state, or nation, that person should serve the full maximum penalty for that crime. I wish we had, in this state, which we should, is the death sentence for anybody that would kill a police officer or law enforcement official that is doing his or her job. We see it today, yesterday, or last week, rather, the EMT worker that was killed by a gang member here in the state of New York. This is plain wrong. We have to send the right message. These files will go to the parole board, and God willing, everybody that sits at that parole board will see all of these signatures from across the state, and they will say, it's wrong to release this woman. It is wrong to let this person, Judith Clark, back on the streets of this great state. Let her serve her sentence, her complete sentence, and that's life. Thank you.
So I'll be brief. I want to thank Senator Gallivan for his leadership on this particular issue, and I concur with his earlier sentiment. The governor got it wrong when he commuted Judith Clark's sentence, and there are 10,000 signatures in these boxes from people who agree that he got it wrong. And I said a couple of months ago at the presser that Judith Clark is exactly where she belongs, within the confines of the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. And my hope and my prayers are that she will remain there when the parole board takes this up in a couple of weeks. Senator Gallivan, thank you again for your leadership on this particular issue.
Do you have any questions? This will be her first hearing.
You say to those who got that she served her time, she been a temporary prisoner, that she served her time, she be out.
A couple different things. First, she may have been an exemplary prisoner. That's fine. But if you go to the executive law and take a look, you'll see in the statute it says parole shall not be granted based on good conduct only. And then it lists a whole host of other things, which includes would her release deprecate the seriousness of her crime and undermine respect for the law. Well, when you have community members that say, are you kidding me? How can this be? I don't think her release meets the standards in the law. And we simply disagree with the governor where he feels that she should get out.
And may I say something too? That, you know what? I don't know the law. I'm not from law enforcement. I'm a mother, a wife, and I could say this, that if somebody killed someone in my family, I don't care how they've behaved in prison. They are a murderer. They deserve to stay in prison and serve the full sentence.
What's a shame here, the governor didn't even have the decency to go talk to these families, to these children that lost their father, that lost their husband. And I agree with Senator Phillips, and I want to thank Senator Gallivan and Fred Ashcott for being here. This is the right thing to do. Keep that woman in jail where she belongs. Those kids are fatherless. Those wives are without a husband. This is wrong.
I didn't meet with the family members, but I actually spoke with one of the officers' wives after we had originally started the parole petition. I've been in regular contact with Tom Zugaby, who is the district attorney of Rockland County where this incident occurred, as well as a couple of the individuals, a couple police officers that were involved in the investigation. And of course, they're outraged by this, they're hurt by this, and they think her release is clearly wrong. No, but there's no, I will also point out, there's no role for us to meet with her. I mean, it's an executive branch function. The governor has the right under the Constitution to be able to do that and commute sentences, and then the parole board ultimately makes the decision. So there's not a role for the legislature to actually going in and interviewing her and making decisions about her future.
And I just want to say, so what if she is reformed? That's great if she's reformed. Let's go back to 3 people are dead because of her actions. She should remain in prison.
You know, Matt, I would suggest too, you said, had any of us spoken to Judith Clark or the families, right? And I would have thought that the person who decided to commute her sentence would at the very least have spoken to the families that lost their loved ones. And that didn't happen either. You would think that one would do that in making such a big decision.
Senator Gallivan, you've met with the governor in recent days, but I mean, in those conversations, you said what the decision?
No, I have not had a conversation with the governor about the Judith Clark case. And what I would want to point out simply is he has the right under the Constitution. He exercised what he lawfully can do. We don't like it and disagree with it, but we can't do anything about his decision. What's before us now is the parole board. No, they'll go to the parole board, and then the members of the parole board, they have to consider many things before they release an individual on parole. And essentially, they will, among the things that they can consider is what the community says about it. I mean, there's many other things. They consider victims. Victims have a right to be heard by the parole board. They certainly will consider her record in prison. But again, Parole shall not be granted based on good conduct in prison only. It's a whole host of other factors, which includes what does this do for respect for the law? And I think her release is, why have a law? Someone kills 2 police officers, a security guard. The police officers are standing up for all of us. They represent the laws, and they're the difference between chaos and an ordered society. And it should mean something, the fact that they were killed and a sentence of 75 to a life sentence should be a life sentence when it comes to police officers.
Senator, I believe the parole board, each member is appointed by the governor. Are you concerned
Yes.
that they have, since they are the governor's pick, that this is a preordained?
No, I'm not. You may or may not know, but I was actually a member of the parole board for 5 years before I was elected to the Senate. Never once in my 5 years under 3 different governors were we ever asked to make a decision one way or the other, and I don't believe that that's the case now. I mean, they're independent-minded individuals, and the law is clear. It sets out a number of factors that the parole board must consider when they make a release decision, and then it takes these factors and you have to apply them to the standards. Part of the standard is not release for good conduct only, danger to the community, respect for the law, undermine respect for the law. So they have to take, it is subjective, there's no question about it, but in this case, I think it clearly meets the standards. We have 3 people dead, 2 of them police officers. The community says, are you kidding me? And I don't think that in an analysis, if I was a member of the Board of Parole, I don't think that she meets the standard for release because of the community and the atrociousness of her crimes.